Switch off your television. Turn off your TV set. Stop watching this. Turn it off!
Hey guys, Brandon here, and I love watching a good horror movie, especially around Halloween. Every year I keep a close eye on what's coming out, and in 2024 there have been some bangers. You've got Late Night with the Devil, Longlegs, The First Omen, In a Violent Nature. I still haven't seen some other big ones, like Strange Darling, The Substance, Speak No Evil, A Quiet Place Day One. These you've probably heard of. But if you do some digging, there are some great, unique horror movies that came out this past year that kind of went under the radar, especially those in other countries besides the US. So if you're looking for a new horror movie to watch that's maybe a little off the beaten path, here are 5 of them that you may not have seen or heard of. For reference, they're all 90% or above fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, if you care about that sort of thing. It's not always right, but I find it's a decent measurement when looking for a good movie. And no spoilers, by the way. I was pretty careful when I put this together, so just don't hurt me. Also, a special thank you to everyone over at Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, just go to patreon.com/thebackfocus. It would be nice. New life opens with a woman on the run. We don't know why, we don't know from whom, we don't know what will happen if she's caught, and we don't even know if it's a good or bad thing if she's caught. All of these questions are answered and then some as the story begins to unravel and blends with a very specific genre of horror, managing to do something fresh and interesting with it.
Life outside of this still does exist.
Not in our line of work, Vince.
We're also introduced to Elsa Gray, who leads a small team to catch the woman in question. She's on the verge of retiring and was recently diagnosed with ALS, something that she has, up until recently, kept to herself. The inevitability of her condition and how she faces it adds a strong emotional core and also, as you'll see, provides some interesting parallels to certain elements of the story.
Are you thinking about...
Yeah.
That's vanity.
Aside from the horror elements, the film doesn't mind taking its time to build a compelling backstory and get you to really care about these characters, their struggles, and what happens to them. So this is definitely worth checking out.
Not too many people are too kind these days. Take care of yourself out there.
Sure.
The German horror film The Devil's Bath is as much a horror film as it is an accurate historical snapshot of a forgotten time and place. In a remote Austrian village in the 1700s, Agnes, an excited newlywed, begins her new life with her fisherman husband, Wolf.
Was hat's gekostet? Was ich heute gehabt habe? Und Mitgift und 200 Gulden hätte ich ausgeglichen gehabt. Gefällt's dir nicht?
The marriage ends up having some downsides that are actually extremely relatable to a modern audience. Wolf impulsively buys a house they can't afford. Oh, don't worry about it, I can make it up selling wood. His mother's coming over all the time criticizing everything from Agnes's cooking to where she puts her pots and pans, and from day one, Wolf seems completely disinterested in consummating their marriage.
Magst mich nicht?
Glaube ich nicht. Freilich magst du. Du. Ist halt ein anderer Schlag.
Now, to me, there are 2 key elements of horror in the film. One, I don't want to give away, even though I really want to. In fact, I'm just going to do it, but I'll censor it so you don't know what I'm saying. She, but she can't, so she, which is what they did during this time period. There we go, got it out of my system. But the other key horror element has to do with how isolated Agnes feels. The minimalist setting and the time period, it's all so unsettling from a perspective of loneliness. It's a very specific slice of life that's both terrifying and incredibly sad. Another element that kept the film moving for me is the historical authenticity. As I was watching it, I found myself saying, oh, so that's how they caught fish. Wait, what is that basket used for? Oh, so that's how they treated diseases? Ugh. It's just a whole other world, and ultimately the film actually teaches you a few key facts about this time period. One fact in particular is revealed that wraps the whole story up in a horrifying, melancholy bow.
I am telling you that there is someone in there with you.
If I open the door, what are you going to do?
1 year after his wife was murdered alone in their new home, Ted, a psychiatrist, reconnects with her eccentric twin sister Darcy, a blind clairvoyant who claims to have the ability to read objects.
One of the more interesting items that has been brought to the store in quite a while.
Oh yeah? Interesting how?
Well, it's haunted.
Darcy eventually visits the house and attempts to unravel the mystery behind her sister's death. She brings an unusual gift with her, a grotesque, life-sized, hand-carved wooden statue.
Why did you take him out of the box?
I didn't.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't even want to give away more than that. Suffice it to say that a bulk of my viewing experience was spent leaning away from the screen, shouting obscenities, and in extreme situations, hitting the mute button. I know, it's sad. It's just a good old-fashioned, dread-filled horror film that it doesn't go for cheap scares. It took every moment it could to torment me. And I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Keep your eyes open. If you hear anything, you pull this door open and you run.
물은 안 찾고. 아유, 깨워서 죄송합니다.
Exuma is maybe not as obscure, at least for me it was. I had never heard of it, but if you live in South Korea, you might be familiar with it since it was the highest grossing South Korean film of 2024.
쩐 냄새가 나는 것 같은데.
아이씨. 숨긴다고 숨겼는데.
Park Ji-young, the patriarch of a wealthy Korean-American family, in an effort to address the mysterious illness of his newborn son, enlists the help of a shaman. The shaman believes that Park's late grandfather is exacting his vengeance on the family from the afterlife, and recommends relocating his grave to appease his restless spirit. The shaman, along with her apprentice, a mortician, and a geomancer, set out to exhume the body, which oddly lies on a distant mountain with a view of the North Korean border. From there, well, you know, that's when things get into spoiler territory and they start kicking into high gear.
내가 한 40년 땅 파먹고 살았지만 여기 듣도 보도 못하는 되게 여기 진짜 악지라고.
There was a lot to absorb with this movie for me. I mean, there's ancient rituals and spirituality, superstitions, generational trauma, and historical atrocities. It continued to subvert my expectations. Like, I kept thinking I knew where it was going, but then it would surprise me just multiple times. There was also a little bit of a culture shock with this one. You know, as an American with little to no familiarity with the history of South Korea or the significance of shamans and their rituals, I spent time after the film just browsing Wikipedia, which isn't a criticism, by the way. I like diving into the lore or the real subject matter of a movie and maybe learning something. And I'll just say that I don't even think that's required for this movie. The story's told so well that you can follow along just fine within the context of everything. In the same vein, I think someone completely unfamiliar with Catholicism would be able to follow the events of The Exorcist just fine. So if, like Bong Joon-ho, you can, quote, overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, this is a good one.
잘 쓰고 갑니다.
Et un gros bout, là.
Ouais, elle est bien. Elle mange bien. Elle est à 50. Je te fais les 200 €, c'est bon?
Vas-y, toi, bouge même plus ton araignée, elle est canée.
Comment ça? Qu'est-ce que tu racontes?
Bah, elle bouge plus.
Pousse-toi.
Faut pas la mettre dans des petites boîtes comme ça, hein.
Mais non, regarde. Elle est bien.
I'd imagine it's pretty difficult to make a genuinely good horror movie about spiders. I haven't seen that many of them, and, I don't know if they're any good, but what I can't imagine is a spider horror movie being better than Infested, which ended up being my favorite horror movie of this past year. After a wild intro featuring 3 Arab smugglers who capture deadly spiders in the Middle East, the credits roll over this pulsating, energetic hip-hop song as we see the spider's journey across the globe to Paris, where it lands in the hands of Caleb.
Tout le monde va bien, tout le monde est en vie? Ouais, Caleb, merci! Y'a pas de quoi, les mecs.
An exotic animal lover and hustler living in a rundown apartment building.
Comment t'es fraîche? Je t'appelle Rihanna. T'es trop belle, ma belle.
This wouldn't be a horror movie if the spider just stayed put, and eventually all of the residents have an exponentially growing problem on their hands. Infested has it all, and unlike a few films I have on this list, it's not a slow burn. It gets off the ground running. It's cleverly written with callbacks and payoffs, it's got enough social commentary to elevate it, but it doesn't come off heavy-handed, and in the same way Jaws manages to find every possible phobia of sharks to exploit for terror, Infested is so locked in on even the most wildest scenario that an arachnophobe can imagine and multiplies it by 100. Definitely worth checking out. And if you're scared of spiders, still check it out. Then it'll be even more thrilling, and maybe you'll overcome your fear. I don't know.
Bon, c'est temporaire. Ce soir, je te fais un 5 étoiles. T'auras bien chaud.
Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed this quickie of a video here, and we'll be back with some more deep dives later this month. Happy Halloween, and I don't know, what do they say on Happy Halloween? Let's stay spooky.